Okay, thank you so much for your kind introduction. And I would also like to thank the organizing committee for providing me with this opportunity to be here. I'm so happy to do this today. So, as she has said, today I intend to offer insight on the research that I'm doing and that I have been doing in coping strategies in Margaret Atwood's The Handmaid's Tale, which was written in 1985. And we are especially dealing with loss because we are immersed in processes of grieving, which are hard. Before I continue with the presentation, I would like to present to you the table of contents that I am about to follow. In the first place, I will give you brief hints of what utopia and dystopia are, in case some of you don't know, and because it will serve the purpose of establishing what are the necessities for a dystopia in order to emerge and for a totalitarian regime in order to emerge, and how this character needs to copy and to adapt to that given environment. Then that point takes me to the second one, which is coping strategies, how she is able to copy in that given environment, and I will delve into that later. Then we go into mourning, grief, and bereavement, because in some papers I've seen they have been used like if they are interchangeable. However, I think there are some subtle differences that I would like to remark here, because in the novel this is very important. Then into The Handmaid's Tale, into the novel as such, I will present a dichotomy in which she's living, which is the absence-presence, and then one of the coping mechanisms she employs in order to adjust to this environment. And we will end up with some conclusions that will sum up everything that I've explained today. Okay, so as the starting point of my presentation, I would like to say that utopian fiction advocates for an ideal society that we can achieve if we follow social and political progress through the implementation of technology, science, and new governmental policies improvements. However, dystopian fiction, although it is not its counterpart, emerges as a force, and I would say as a wrecking force, because I think it's so powerful in its conception, that questions such improvements and exposes how those may go awry instead of leading to a real progress in any given society. Now into the coping strategies, what these are and how do I apply this to my research. According to Susan Folkman and Richard Lazarus, coping mechanisms are a way in which individuals copy or try to answer the request of their environment. However, these requests are appraised as taxing or exceeding the resources of the individual. So they need to use something else in order to adapt and to adjust to the given environment. And if we take into consideration that we are speaking about a dystopian reality which is oppressive, it's full of censorship, the characters only have two options. The first one is to die if they rebel against the oppression, and then they get killed for that. So we will have a novel of only of 2 pages, so that's not the point. Or to adapt, to try. So they need to do that only with coping strategies. There's no other way I contend to do that. Some other researchers, such as Weschler, contend that these coping mechanisms are survival responses that come with evolution, because as the time changes and as the problems and threats are different, the needs of coping with that also change. But I found that employing coping strategies as the only way to structure my analysis was not enough, because we are, and as I have said before at the beginning of my presentation, we are delving into a society that is full of process of grieving. The protagonist of the novel subject of analysis, Offred, is immersed from the very beginning and in its entirety through process of grieving and bereavement. And it's important we take this into consideration. For that reason, I also chose to use the DPM, which stands for the Dual Process Model of Coping with Bereavement, that was first introduced in 1999 by Margaret Atwood and Handmaid. This model finds its basis in grief, in Freud's grief work, and it deals with how an individual, in order to cope in a healthy way with a grieving process, needs to oscillate between loss-oriented stages and restoration-oriented stages. That is to say, going from denial and to rejecting that what has happened, the loss of their beloved ones, to those places in which he assumes that he needs to continue with his life, whether her beloved ones are there or not. However, I contend that in this case, we also need to take into consideration the environment is vital in order for a human being, or a character in this case, to complete in a healthy manner it's the process of bereavement. And I think a totalitarian society is not the best place to do that, because there's oppression, there's censorship, and the ways in which someone can cope in order to go over that problem or that stage are not the best ones. So for this reason, I thought it was important to difference between mourning, bereavement, and grief. Because mourning, for example, which is the public expression of a loss, is not where to be seen in The Handmaid's Tale. There is no possibility for the main character of the novel to express anything. She is not able to wear, for example, black clothes in order to say she's mourning someone, because, as she said, the customs are already prescribed depending on the social function that you developed in the society of Gilead, in the Republic of Gilead. And for example, she cannot talk to anybody either, because she cannot talk to anybody at all. So mourning is nowhere to be seen here in the novel. But for example, bereavement and grief are two processes, that are very present. The first one, even though we don't know if her beloved ones are dead or not, she puts herself into that position sometimes. And she goes through that process of thinking she has lost a significant one or a beloved one to death. However, grief is the only process is present through the entire novel, because she is all the time responding personally to that loss and coping with that loss in the ways she can. Now this grieving process also takes me to the absence-presence dichotomy. As she is not able to fully complete this process of mourning, she is lost between the absence, when she gets lost in past experiences and in what her life used to be like, and in her presence, which would be the present time when that is bearable for her. So she sometimes gets up to the point of blurring the lines that separate both stages and gets stuck in a place which sometimes can feel uncanny, because she is not there, not here, she's in between. The presence of the uncanny is not only there, but when she brings to the present from the past her beloved ones, the reader sometimes is not really able to tell the difference about if those characters are still in the past or if those have appeared in the narration or are in the room with her. However, as we keep on reading, we realize that it was just wishful thinking. It's not that they were there, really. So the last part of this section deals with disembodiment and relational identity. As her old previous experiences before the raising of the Republic of Gilead were embodied, that is to say, she with her body and with her own identity made connections with other people, she doesn't really know how to do that without them. Her relational identity means that she connected with others, and therefore she was someone to those others. When those others are not there and the bonds and the connections are broken, she finds herself as not knowing who she is, because the other ones, the ones that gave meaning to her existence, are not there. So, for example, she never really, when she talks about past experiences, she never talks about being offered. She is her mother's daughter, her daughter's mother, Luke's partner. She's never herself. She is presented to us, she does present herself to us as someone weak, as someone with no power of decision or power or with any agency. She doesn't really know that she has any agency. Therefore, she needs to cope with that, and for that reason, she goes into the creation of a double version, the creation of a doppelganger. As her ultimate aim is to last, she needs to do something in order to adjust. As we have seen before, she didn't chose to die, she chose to try. So she intends to last, but her instinct is to soothe, to make it better. How can we do this if we don't have anyone we can rely on? So we do that creating someone else, as if we have like a kind of multiple personality disorder. We create someone with whom we share a body, but that have different personalities of versions depending on the circumstance that we are facing. So relating this doppelganger to mythical folklore, it sometimes has been thought as to impend death. It was something that foreshadowed the death of the character, as it happens in many novels. But in this case, I don't think this is the case. I think it is there to show the unreliability of the narrator. How can we trust someone that doesn't really trust herself and needs to create someone else in order to keep on living? Or even to establish the boundaries up to which the subjective discourse can extend, but also to acknowledge and to accept, and I think this is the real aim the author had, if I can say that, in order for us to see Offred as a human-like character, as someone with a human dimension. So we could empathize with that character more, and we could see how these dystopian realities she is immersed in is not so far away from us. It may be closer than we thought, and in order also to arise red flags to watch out for in our present, for the future to be different. So she creates, therefore, two different types of doppelganger. The first one is based on Moira, her former best friend. As a matter of fact, Moira is never really presented to us through her own vision. It's just every time through Offred's vision. So we can say that she admires Moira so much, or she did admire her so much, and she thinks of this character as someone powerful, someone who was very rebellious with a subversive function. So she creates this doppelganger, and she relies on that in order to face the everyday struggle she's facing in the Republic of Gilead. When she is not able to do something, she, in a way, transforms herself mentally and says, okay, what would Moira do in this case? So she does. And she is aversive. She can trespass some thresholds that were not there for her when she is just Offred, only when she is Moira in this case. However, we have another, and with this one I finish my presentation, which is the ancestress. This one is not useful as Moira would be. This is empathetic. It doesn't really hold the function of helping her in achieving some things or in trying to trespass things that were vital in order to keep on living. It's just something or someone that has experienced the same things and that has lived the same experience in the commander's house, because it is projected into the prior mate that occupied the room she is occupying now in the commander's house. Therefore, this empathetic double appears as a phantasmagorical vision that is distanced by timelines. This phantasmagorical version is in the past and Offred in the present, and warns her about what she should do next before she gets taken away and put into a black van and disappears, because we don't really know what happens since the end of the novel is opened. So, and I quote literally, this doppelganger says, "There's no one you can protect. Your life has value to no one. I want it finished." So, as the stressor is too hard for Offred to be handled alone, and she doesn't really have any kind of resources, what she tries is to avoid and to escape the situation. How can she do that? By ending her life. So this unbearable stressor results into these suicidal thoughts. I contend that this doppelganger, what really does is rejects the reality and also the dimension of the loss, but of the loss of her own self. So the only possible escape that she can see is avoiding facing the reality she has in front of her. So in order to sum up my presentation, I would say that this outcome suggests that the main coping mechanism employed by Offred was escape avoidance. She's all the time trying to run away from her own reality in order to make it more manageable for her. And this is also followed by distancing, both corresponding to maladaptive coping mechanisms. Why? Because in the long run, they are not useful. They don't really let this person adapt to the given environment. Whilst in her prior life she used to approach her experiences via embodiment, now she disembodies herself because that body is something that commodifies her so completely. She is there because the value she possesses rests only in her body and in the possibility she owns to give a baby to the commander. So she tries to detach from that. She tries to stop identifying with her own body. She also says her body seems strange to her already. And in order to finish, these coping mechanisms, I argue that are not useful, nor in the short term and not also in the long run, because she never truly adapts to the given environment. So therefore, she is never going to adapt. And as I said in the beginning, she never does, but because maybe in a totalitarian regime, you cannot truly adapt, never, if you are a subdued one. You are not the one that oppresses, but the one that is being oppressed. So maybe I would like to keep on with that idea. These are the words I've used in order to structure this presentation, and I want to thank you all for your attention, and I hope you liked it.